Morning, everybody. Wow, it's nice to have everybody well and have the seats filled instead of, speaking to like half of the people. And I really got to say it's been quite incredible the way the communities come together when almost half of the community was sick. And when we had posada, there were 5 bhikshunis. That's, like we're used to many more. But it's really wonderful to see how the people who weren't sick just came together and, you gave Dharma talks in 5 minutes notice, you vacuumed the floor, you did the dishes, you did the cooking, and I didn't hear any complaints. I don't know, maybe there were some, but I didn't hear any. And which is amazing because this was a stressful situation and everybody chipped in and nobody complained. In a more leisurely situation, people don't chip in and they complain. It's very strange, isn't it? How we sentient beings are. But I was quite delighted and really pleased to see how people stepped up to the plate and contributed, and very happily so. Yeah, and it was mostly the seniors who were sick. So this praise is directed towards the juniors. So don't say I never say anything nice to you about you. Yeah. But really, you guys ran the show, so it's quite good. Okay, so we'll continue with equalizing and exchanging self with others, especially the equalizing part. We remember there's the 3 sections. 2 of the sections are in accord with the conventional perspective. And the last section is the ultimate perspective. And of the 2 with the conventional, we finished the first one, okay, which is the conventional perspective from the viewpoint of others. Yeah, and remember there were 3 points under that. What were they?
Just like me, everybody wants to be happy and not suffer.
Right. First one, everybody wants to be happy and not suffer. Second? Yeah, it's not fair to help some beggars and not others. Third? Yeah, and similarly, it's not, fair to just treat some patients who are ill and remove their suffering and ignore others. Yeah. So this is quite an effective meditation when you see yourself being biased, just sometimes over really stupid things, favoring one person over another, and just to stop yourself and say, but they both want happiness and not suffering. So why do I want one of them to look at me and the other one not? Or one of them to speak to me and the other one not? They're all the same in that regard, And here is where we can really see very clearly our motivations for interacting with others. Yeah. Why do I want some people to speak to me and others not? Well, some people make me happy and other people annoy me. Yeah. It's not because one is better than the other. It's just totally, the criteria is what pleases me and what displeases me. Yeah. And that's not a very good criteria for judging the capabilities or the talents or anything about the other person. Yeah. Just because we like them doesn't mean that they're fantastic, and just because we don't like them, doesn't mean something's wrong with them. Because this is all coming from, our own little periscope, remember, of me, I, my, and mine, and how I judge everybody and put them into categories. Yeah. So it's quite good to remember this when you see yourself doing that, especially if there's different categories of people that you have, kind of suspicion for, or uncomfortable feelings with, or delightful feelings with, and to really stop and question, well, why do I favor them? Yeah. Yeah, because you see, this involves a complete change in how we look at people. Our usual way is how they make me feel, not. But see, even the wording, how they make me feel. It's not them making us feel a certain way. It's our mind projecting stuff onto them. Okay, but that's the criteria, how I feel in relationship to them. And what this meditation is doing is saying that criteria is completely crazy. There's no validity to it. And rather, it's much more realistic. Look from the side of others and see how they all want happiness and don't want suffering. Yeah. Then there's space for everybody in our heart. Then there's a way for us to relate to everybody. But when the perspective is how I feel when I'm with them, then everything becomes quite skewed. Because as long as I feel good with them, then I give them attention, and perks and da. But the moment I'm fed up, like, yeah, and then my attention goes somewhere else. So you can see how we have so many strings attached when there is, attachment involved to different people, and this kind of very superficial discrimination. I remember when, what was her name? One lady came to speak to us, the one who got killed in the plane.
Sandy Williams.
Yeah, Sandy Williams. And we were talking about groups of people that, we just look at them and automatically there's some kind of stereotype and we feel afraid of them. And I remember saying, because I have a few of those groups, I just see them and like boing, and she had some, and I think everybody pretty much had some, yeah. And so mine were, the big tough men with their big hats and beards and their AK-47s strutting down the street, the proud boy, oath keeper kind of people, and we have them in this area, and how I just see that image and it's like, I don't want to be near these people. Yeah, they scare me. But that's like, I haven't even talked to them. I don't even know them. I've just projected that on based on the reputation of the group in the media. And I'm sure if I talk to any of those people, and I think the guy who worked on our septic system when we first moved here, he was a libertarian, and I told you the story about how he chased the sheriff off of his property. But to stop and think, if I talk to them as a human being, yeah, and I made an effort, for sure we could find something of common interest to talk about. Yeah, and if as soon as I find that thing of common interest to talk about, then that breaks that whole stereotype and that whole imputation of, here's kind of some rough, tough, white guy with his gun who's, it's like, no, that's not who he is. He's a person. He has feelings. He has a family. He can be kind. Yeah. And so how important it is in the country nowadays to really, instead of pointing the finger about how others are bigoted, to look inside and try and overcome our own stereotypes about people. Yeah, but this is a meditation that really applies here. Okay. So, yeah, otherwise we kind of read this meditation. Yeah, yeah, everybody wants happiness. Nobody wants something. Yeah, that's nice. So what? Yeah, I knew that before I came to the Dharma. Didn't you know that before you came to the Dharma? You didn't? Oh, I knew that before I came. It was, you know, oh, I'm better. No, no, it's like, yeah, it was always obvious to me. Everybody wants happiness and nobody wants suffering. But, and I really love the thing of, yeah, love thy neighbor as thyself. But I had no idea how to break through all of that, projection, which I didn't take as projection. I thought it was reality. Yeah, that's the problem. And, to really start looking deeper at what other living beings were, and to really think what was, what is equal, how sentient beings are equal. Yeah, because I remember as a kid, I always thought it was quite unfair that that I had food and I was aware of other kids in other countries not having food. Yeah, and it was just like very unfair. This world is not a fair place. Why should I have and they shouldn't have? And yeah, so there was that awareness. But how do you get your own mind past? Yeah, it's not fair, but I'm sure glad I have this perk. Yeah. And, somehow, yeah, getting our mind beyond that to really see, what's going on in the world with other living beings in a fair way. Yeah. Okay, maybe we should do our chanting at the beginning. This meditation, I just think, is so powerful and so pertinent in our lives. It points out so many things. Yeah, at least to me. So, okay, so now visualize the merit field in the space in front. Yourself surrounded by all the sentient beings. Okay, so to generate our motivation, let's begin by thinking of one kind of group of people that we have an especially strong emotional reaction towards. So it could be some group that we feel threatened by or afraid of, or some group of people that we feel very attracted to and want to be part of. Yeah, so think of that group of people. You don't need to know anybody in it. We're kind of calling up in some way the stereotypical image of, either the kind of person that makes us feel quite insecure, and the kind of person that we feel very drawn to with attachment. And then think, what is it about that group of people that I feel especially repulsed by or especially drawn to? And then ask yourself, is that the only characteristic of those people? Or are they a complete human being with all sorts of other activities, other interests, other things they talk about? And is the way I'm seeing them just looking at one small slice of their behavior? And imagine that person, that if there's somebody that you feel threatened by, imagine them with their family being very kind. And if there's someone who you're very attracted to and attached to, some kind of group of people, imagine when they're in a bad mood and they take it out on other people. So try and see everybody as full human beings, not just some stereotype that we've projected on them. And then switch your perspective from the qualities you think they have to your perspective and see all these people as wanting happiness and not suffering in an equal way. And focus the mind on that and see if your feeling towards them changes. And then think they're both equal in that perspective. And I want to follow the Bodhisattva path to benefit all sentient beings. So there's no reason whatsoever to think some beings are more important and others less so. And so therefore I will train my mind to keep my perspective of others something realistic regarding their qualities and their wish for happiness and not misery. And I will work equally for all of them. So there's such a different feeling, isn't there, when you look at sentient beings in terms of how do they, how do I feel when I'm with them? And then the perspective of how can I benefit them when I'm with them? Yeah, those two different perspectives. I mean, it's just how you feel inside. I don't know about you. I mean, I can feel it. When I look at people and my perspective is, how are they going to make me feel? Kind of this, what can I get out of them in some way? Yeah. Versus, I'm here to try and benefit them and to look at the relationship in terms of how can I benefit them instead of how can I get them to sing and dance so that I like what I'm hearing. Yeah, if you know what I mean. Yeah, we try and get people to do what we like. Yeah. And that's really frustrating because they never do. Yeah, or they do for a little while and then they stop, or they do and then they get mad at us. Yeah. Whereas if we just completely flip and okay, the purpose of this relationship isn't for me to get some good feeling by being around them, but for me to benefit them. Mm-hmm. And why do I benefit them? That leads us right into the first point of the second group of conventional reasons to equalize self and others, which is, all sentient beings have been kind to us in the past, present, and will be kind in the future, so we should help them equally without abandoning any of them. So we started talking about that last week, and I think we kind of really got into it, talking about the kindness of the parents, and then the kindness of strangers. And I didn't have much time last week to talk about the kindness of the people who harm us. Because those are the last group of people. Oh, they harm me. They didn't help me. They aren't kind to me. Banish them from the face of the earth. They are evil. It's so incredible how in the press, you watch what people say. This person is evil. Yeah, as if they had only one characteristic, which is evil. Yeah. Now, what does evil mean? Yeah, because people are throwing around all these terms nowadays. I don't really know what all of them mean. What does evil mean besides, I don't like what you're saying? That's what it seems to me. The right says the left are evil and the left says the right is evil. Yeah, what does evil mean? Okay. And then you listen, especially around the politics. The right is saying leftist radicals. Leftist radical socialists who want to make the country communist. Yeah. Now, I would like a definition. What is a leftist? You know, there's so many different ways of being on the left, aren't there? You could be on the left in terms of financial policy, in terms of social policy, you know, in terms of foreign affairs. And what position does the left hold on all these? Is it one uniform position so that if you are on the left, you only think exactly alike with all these other people? And what is a leftist radical? What makes somebody a radical? What's the definition of radical? I mean, I really want to get these terms straight so I understand what these people are saying. What is a radical? Yeah, and a socialist. Now, I know when I studied poli-sci what a socialist is, but I don't think that's what these people are calling these leftist radicals. And what is a leftist radical socialist? And then you have Antifa. What in the world is Antifa? They aren't even a group that's certified with the government, you know? What is Antifa? Okay, then you go the other direction. Okay, a rightist. How are people right in terms of foreign policy, in terms of social things, in terms of finances? What does being a rightist mean? Yeah. And then you are a rightist, again, radical. Yeah. So what does radical mean when you're on the right? And third, you are a fascist. Now, what is a fascist? I used to know what a fascist is when I studied World War II. What is a fascist nowadays? What does that mean? So people are throwing all these names at everybody else, but I would really like some definitions so that I knew what people are talking about. Maybe this is the influence of having studied Dura. You know, I want some definitions. Yeah, but it helps because otherwise, you know, it's crazy, you know. And then we hear a magna Republican and a what is the other one? There's the magna Republicans and then the and the rhinos. Yes, thank you. Yeah, the rhinos. Yeah, you know what a rhino is? Yeah, okay. No, it's a Republican in name only. Okay, which means that you don't follow Trump. That's the only definition I can come up with for a rhino, you know, besides a kind of animal, you know. But I don't know. I mean, there's lots of people who don't follow Trump. Does that make them all rhinos? You know, are you either a rhino or a MAGA? You know? So it's you know, it's just how we slap terms on people and then we think we know everything about them. Yeah. So then this first point is completely looking at them as they've been kind. Instead of they're this, pointing fingers, is they've been kind, and all of them have been kind. And of course, yeah, they've been kind when they've been our parents. Oh, except until we turn against our parents and then we criticize them and blah, blah, blah. That's another topic, you know. But they've all been kind as our friends. Yeah, they've been kind as strangers. We can stretch our mind that far. Yeah, but people who have harmed us, how have they been kind? Never. Yeah, they are inherently evil and never to be forgiven. They have no other side of their personality. They do no other action. Their whole life value boils down to one action that they've done, which was an action that harmed me or the people that I care about. We can't see anything else in that person. Yeah. And then what does that do? We hold on to that image of them like this. We make it concrete. That person harmed me. There is nothing good about them. I will never forgive them. And as I said before, we don't break that vow. Yeah, ordination vows, marriage vows, But when I vow never to speak to somebody again, I am firm. I will never do that. Yeah. Do you have people that you have that attitude towards? Yeah. People have harmed you. You don't like. You don't want to get near them. It's interesting to think about. Yeah. We think, oh no, I'm a nice, kind person, very forgiving. Yeah. So, as many of you have heard before, I come from a family on my mother's side that holds grudges. Yeah. And so I grew up as a kid, these people who live on the same, they had a house near Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and there were 2 units downstairs and 2 units upstairs. And the people in the top unit upstairs, we do not talk to. Yeah? Because we're in the downstairs unit. The people upstairs, we don't talk to. Why? You're a little kid and you hear, don't talk to those people. Why? Well, it's complicated. I still don't know the reason. It has something to do with on my grandmother's generation, okay, that something between the siblings on the grandmother's generation, they didn't get along. So because they didn't get along, me, as the second generation down, are not supposed to talk to their kids or play with their kids. Perfectly reasonable, huh? If you're crazy. Okay. And whenever there was a big family event, making a seating arrangement was extremely difficult because this one didn't speak to that one, who didn't speak to this one, who didn't speak to that one. And so it started out on my grandparents' generation, then my parents' generation. When I was little, all the brothers and sisters got along. Then different things happened, and this one and that one, and something about the business, and I still don't know the whole story with them. Okay. Yeah. And then I thought my generation, we would never do something like that. Then I talked to some cousins, and they don't speak to their siblings. Okay. And you just see, you grow up and you see this as an example and you see, yeah. And you pick out, it's very interesting, people who are family, one small slight is much heavier than a small slight by a stranger. Yeah. Like you aren't invited to one party or somebody didn't give you a gift that is up to rank for the occasion, and we're not speaking again. It's crazy. And then even when people are on their deathbeds, one of my cousins called my brother when his father was dying, my uncle was dying, asking if my mother, my uncle's sister, wanted to talk to him before he died, because they hadn't spoken in years. My mom said no. And it's like this is, we form these opinions. We hold grudges. Yeah. And, in 7th grade, in Mr. Reese's current events class, Peter Armetta, was anti-Semitic and made some anti-Semitic remark about how you should just go back to where you came from. And I was taught that when I heard anti-Semitic remarks, I should be upset. So I did as I was told. I got upset. I dashed out of the room. I spent the rest of the day crying in the girls' bathroom. And I vowed never to speak to Peter or Metta again as long as I lived. And I haven't spoken to him. But we were in many of the same classes, this was in 7th grade, 8th grade, all through high school. Both of us went on a special program to college. We were in the same group there. It was like an ice chunk. So I'm waiting for him to turn up at some talk I give so I can apologize for how stupid I was. But okay, the kindness of the person who harms you, what that event taught me, plus other things I experienced as I was going through school, was I do not want to have an identity of persecution. I do not want that to be my identity of I am a persecuted person. I belong to a persecuted group. And I always have to be wary. Okay. When I went to Israel to teach in 1997, somebody wanted to do an interview, so I went over to one person's house, and this journalist came, and they were quite interested that I grew up in a Jewish family, but I am now Buddhist. And so they were saying, well, are you Jewish? And so I gave the usual Sunday school answer of what does it mean to be Jewish? Okay, so, is it a race? That's what Hitler said it was. Is it a race? Is it a religion? Is it a culture? What is it? So I said, this is always the Sunday school debate. What does it mean to be Jewish? So, so I said that as a response to the journalist. So one woman there looked at me and she said, the next time they come to kill us, are they going to kill you too? That was her demarcation of being Jewish. That you are a persecuted minority and you're going to get killed by all these other people who are prejudiced against your group. I do not want that identity. That's not why I became a Buddhist, by the way, just to change identities. But, it's like it really affected me. It's like I refuse to grow up with that kind of mentality. So I'm aware of the culture and the history and all of this kind of stuff. But I have a very different outlook on life. But I have to look at those incidents like that and say thank you to the people who made that happen, because if they hadn't made that happen, I would have not grown, in the way I had grown, and I would have not really looked at how because I was taught to hold grudges. Did any of you grow up in families where you were taught just, these people are mean, or these family members, this side of the family, whatever it was. And as kids, you just kind of take that on and you believe it. Unless you really stop and think about it. And what made me stop and think about it was these actions by other people. So I have to say thank you to them. The kindness of the quote, quote, enemy. So there's many, I could give you many more examples, but all of them boil down to, I'll give you one more. When I was teaching at DFF, there was one person who was very, very helpful in the group, and we worked quite closely together in terms of planning the program and running the group and everything. And it was, he was a very good practitioner. And it was my birthday, and so the people were having some refreshments at the center. And he didn't come, but he sent a card. And the card said, I'm leaving the group. I can't accept anything about the lower realms anymore. Yeah, this was my birthday card from somebody who I relied on very much to help with the administration of the group at my birthday. What in the... I mean, it was like out of the blue. I had no idea what was going on, why he said that, and why he felt that. I mean, what's the, all of a sudden this issue with the lower realms? Anyway, so I was like floored, and I was just devastated. And, it's like, oh no, like, who's going to help, and what did I do wrong, and blah, 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 just brought up all this garbage, okay? So I did a retreat very soon after that. And of course, in the retreat, when you're upset and you're angry, what do? You have to work out your whatever in your mind. You can't ignore it. So, but this whole situation made me see as I went into it, was, the subtle ways that attachment works. Yeah, and somebody helps me, you become attached, then you have unrealistic expectations. Yeah, they're a good practitioner now. That means they're always going to be there. They're always going to practice. They're never going to go into crisis. They aren't going to drop out and do something else. You develop unrealistic expectations. All sorts of things like that without realizing that people are very complex and that they have all sorts of karma, as well as I have all sorts of karma, that we don't even know about and can't even think of ripening that would lead us to say and do things and make decisions that are completely out of character with who we are right now. Yeah? And it really made me think about that and how I have to be so much more open and relaxed and not have those kind of expectations. Yeah. And when somebody completely, does something and like, bye-bye, to not take it personally. Yeah, to look at my part of it, what mistakes I have made, but to not take their change of heart personally because it has to do with their mental state and their karma ripening. Yeah, and so I don't need to get upset every time like this. So it's like the verse in the 8 verses of thought training. How does it go? The one about betrayed, mistreat me with abuse, slander, and so on. I will just accepting defeat and offering the victory to them. No, but it's it's the one about betraying trust. Trust, yeah. It's I have it memorized, but I can never think of it. When someone I have benefited and have placed great trust treats me very badly, yeah, this is seeing that person as my supreme teacher, okay? Because I really felt in that situation that this person had really betrayed my trust, yeah? And it was like coming out of the blue and what's going on. And, after I put so much energy and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I had I was the prosecutor. You know how we are when we get mad at somebody? You're the prosecutor You're the judge, you're the jury, they are convicted, they do not have a defender at all because there is nothing for them to defend. Yeah. And we just, try them in the court of our own mind, throw them in prison, decide to hate them forever, and what good does it do us? Yeah. So instead, to flip the situation and see, look at how much I benefited from that person hurting me. Yeah, I can either stay stuck in my anger and hatred, stuck in my feeling of victimization, or I can learn from this situation. And the choice is mine. It has nothing to do with the other person. Am I going to learn from this situation, or am I going to stay stuck in my anger? Yeah. And so that was what, the situation I was in. And I mean, once you've been through chapter 6 a few times, you're judge and jury convicting the other person of how stupid and evil they are. It doesn't work anymore. Shantideva is like right there going, you read what I wrote. Why don't you practice it? But Shantideva, you don't understand this person. It just hurt me so badly. And Shantideva says, well, whose karma made that happen? But you say, forget about karma. They don't understand me. Nobody understands me. And Shantideva says, do you understand them? Yeah. And then you go, but, they have obligations towards me and they should act this way. And it's only the polite thing to do in society that they act this way. And they don't do that. And Shantideva says, and who made up the standards of what polite is? Shantideva doesn't let you out of it. And it's good. It's good, because you have to sit there and see that your entire way of thinking is stupid. Yeah, really. And how much you fall back into that old way of stupidity and hold on to it. And we're the one who suffers from it. The other person doesn't suffer, we suffer. Yeah. So, when you really get into that, then you have to, this person in Seattle, I say thank you because he really taught me a lot. Yeah. And there's so many people, if I look back in my life, that I have to say thank you for what you taught me. Even though the situation was hell, yeah, I learned from it, and I learned some things very important from it. And it's only because you put me in that situation that I learned. Otherwise, I never would have learned. Yeah? So, so you have to see the kindness of the quote, enemy, because the enemies are not really mean. Yeah? If we pull ourselves out of that way of looking at it, the enemies, who are they? They're sentient beings who want to be happy, who don't know what the cause of happiness and what the cause of suffering are. That's all. They're not evil people who are out to get us. They're confused people who are living in the middle of suffering. Yeah. So why am I why am I prejudiced against them because of the way they acted towards me? When I'm suffering, I want people to have compassion for me. What about me having compassion for them when they're in the middle of their incredible suffering? Yeah. And so the same, goes for looking at other people. In one way, I talk about certain political figures, because their behavior is a very good example of things that we're trying not to be like. But in another way, they are not that behavior. That's just a stereotypical image because of the press. But if I look at them, why are they acting in that way? Because in some way they're like little kids who are just saying, I just want to be loved. I just want to be accepted. I want to feel like I'm important. And they're like that, except they're in adult bodies and they happen to have wiggled their way into positions of power. But what is feeding them is, their internal needs to feel like a valuable, loved person, which I think everybody has, that wish. Until we get really start pinpointing our self-grasping as the enemy and our self-centeredness as the enemy, that this is what kind of motivates us. The wish for happiness, not suffering. The wish to feel like we are accepted, that we are in a safe environment where people won't attack us, that we are valued and we can contribute. And that's what we want. And that's what's going on in Putin's mind and, dear Donnie's mind. That's all. So why are we what use is hating them? That's ridiculous. Yeah. And especially when you think of the kind of rebirth they're going to have. Yeah. You can't even imagine that. Mm-hmm. So I think I told you when we were going up, when I was in pilgrimage in Tibet, the windy road going up to the top to get to Ganden Monastery, and thinking of all the Chinese soldiers who were poor boys from village boys who don't know anything about politics, who joined the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, to earn some money to send back to their impoverished parents. And then, the Mao sent them out to Tibet to, destroy monasteries, but they had to exert tremendous effort, climbing up this mountain to get to the top to where Ganden Monastery is. Yeah, and then they completely destroyed the place. There were a few places, a few buildings left, but most of it destroyed. And especially, Jason Kappa's body was there, and that was, anyway. But were they evil people? Do we have to hate them? They were just really impoverished young boys who wanted to get some money for their family. Yeah, and you put people in certain situations, and they act in certain ways. Yeah, and but how can we hold it against them when they're just under the influence of self-grasping ignorance and the self-centered thought? And so are we. Yeah, we have the right to judge them when we're controlled by the real enemies, just as they're controlled by those real enemies. Okay, so the first point there was all the sentient beings have been kind to us. The second point was if you think that sentient beings have harmed us, remember that that their help exceeds the harm. So that's what I was just talking about, instead of just they harm me, they harm me, they harm me, not just this is what they did that harmful, and now they're doing something else that is nice. So now we have two things. So, but actually the harm, if we take the harm into the path, that harm helps us. Yeah. And that's the whole beauty of the thought training teachings, of transforming adversity into the path. And those teachings, I think it's really important, to get our mind very, very steeped in those teachings, so that we can manage whatever happens to us in life. And who knows what's going to happen to us. And it's going to, we may face very difficult situations, but may we at least have some background in those thought training teachings so we try and remember them and practice them when difficulties arise. Yeah. And I think that's so important to get that foundation. Otherwise, you can study all sorts of categories and this and that and the other thing, but that's not going to help you when you're in a jam. And the real Dharma practice is transforming our minds. Yeah. So to know how to work with the mind. Okay, so if we think that sentient beings have harmed us, remember that their help exceeds their harm. Yeah. So even if they harm us this life, we can see the harm as benefit. But also remember they may harm us this life, but in previous lives they've helped us. In future lives they will help us. In other words, people are not inherently existent kind of frozen personalities who we're always going to relate with in the same way from one life to the next. Yeah. And people just change forms. This time, you're born as a family and they take care of you. Next time you're born, in universes away. And the time after that, you're fighting each other in a war. And the time after that, one of you is a small fish and one of you is a shark. And, it's like these things are always changing. So, just looking at who people are right now and thinking that being is like this and never, ever, ever will I do anything good towards them because they've always been horrible and they always will be horrible. I mean, that's not the Buddhist view of what rebirth means. Everything is like changing constantly. So we can't just put people in categories and just do things like that. So that's really important that we remember, because when we hold on to grudges, we think if I hate that person, they suffer. My hatred makes them suffer. Yeah. I'm sure somebody hates me. I have no idea who they are. Does their hatred make me suffer? Yeah. Does my hatred make anybody else suffer? Okay, if I started attacking them or something. Yeah. But just holding a grudge and hating somebody, that doesn't make them suffer. Who's the one that suffers? Me. Yeah? Because a mind that holds on to anger is an extremely unhappy mind. We're the one who suffers the most. And you see this, as you work with many people and they tell you about their lives, you see how some people stack up in their mind, one grudge after another, one feeling of betrayal after another, one feeling of being cheated after another, until, when they're old, you wonder sometimes why some people are bent over, if it's just because of their body or if it's because of all the hurt and anger that they've stored up during their whole lives. Yeah. And who wants to grow old like that? I'm sure, did you know people who are old and bitter? Old and angry? Yeah? Do you want to grow up to be like that? Yeah? I don't. Yeah? So, if we're not going to grow up to just be so focused on how life has mistreated us, we have to learn how to be resilient. And I think the real key to resilience is forgiving, and finding different ways to look at the situation so that we can release our antipathy and release our hurt. Yeah, because where does the antipathy come from? From hurt. Where does the hurt come from? Self-grasping, self-centeredness, attachment. Okay. Are all of those realistic, are any of those realistic mental factors? So why am I holding on to unrealistic mental factors and taking them as the truth of the situation? Yeah. Who's causing me suffering? Self-grasping ignorance, self-centered thought, not the other person. Yeah. And so if I'm going to be happy, I have to start releasing those and have to start dealing with my attachment and my anger and my jealousy and my arrogance and all those other nifty little mental factors that are hanging out in there, ready to jeopardize my happiness. Yeah, and that's our work. That's our work. And nobody else can do it for us. We can't hire anybody else to do it. Yeah. You can put an advertisement in the newspaper. Please, I need somebody to meditate on fortitude. I'm so busy with all my projects, but I'm really angry, so I need somebody to meditate on fortitude for me so that I can relax. Yeah, that would be nice, If you have some spare money, hire somebody to meditate on fortitude so you can learn to let go of your anger. Yeah, but who are you going to hire? Yeah, because nobody else can do it for us. It's like, I'm exhausted. I need some extra sleep. Can you sleep for me? I don't have any time to sleep. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, if we didn't have to waste our precious human life sleeping, we could hire somebody else to do it. Yeah. Yeah. There will be sleep experts. Yeah. Who you can pay to sleep for different hours. I'll sleep 3 hours for, so much money. If you want me to sleep 4 hours for you, you get a discount per hour. Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice? It doesn't work, though. Yeah, it doesn't work. We're the only one that can do this. Okay, then the third point, this one I find very, very powerful too, is since we and others are going to die, there's no sense in discriminating against anyone or holding grudges. And that's really true, isn't it? We're all going to die. So what is the use, first of all, of jealousy? This one I find a very good remedy for jealousy. If we're all going to die, why am I jealous of people? Because whatever thing that they have that I'm jealous of, they're going to die and lose it. So why should I hold it against them that they have that perk and I don't? Because it's only some temporary characteristic that they're going to have, and we're all dying and taking rebirth, so they're going to lose that advantage, and maybe in next life, I'll get it. But why do I have to, hold so much hostility now? That's really a waste of my energy, And, if we're all going to die, why am I holding on to all this hurt and pain and betrayal? Yeah. People promised, and I thought that this was going to be like that, and my life is supposed to be like that. Families are supposed to be happy. Where did that rule come from? Yeah. Everybody in a family is supposed to love each other and they're supposed to be happy. We grow up like that. Who made that rule? Or is that just a TV commercial rule, especially around Christmas time? Yeah, where everybody's sitting there, joy to the world, and then mama's baking cookies and daddy's, stuffing stockings, and the kids are running around and you get your toy train and everything you want, and the family is happy. Nobody gets sick, there's no financial problems. Yeah, there's nothing that happens. Everybody's always, Betty Crocker and Betty Crocker and Lassie and Leave It to Beaver. Yeah, everybody and there's little problems, but they're all remedied because that's the way life is supposed to be. Yeah, and that's what we get on TV. And we think that. Well, who made up that? Who said that? That's a bunch of garbage, isn't it? You have a bunch of people with afflictions together and you're going to live happily ever after? What? Yeah, there's this one passage in one of the Pali Suttas where the Buddha's going, if I'm somebody with afflictions and all, anger and hatred and something, and I get together with somebody else who has afflictions and anger and hatred and attachment, how is that going to be a good recipe for happiness? And, and that's what made him decide to renounce. One of the things that made him decide to renounce, how's that it's a recipe for disaster. Why do we expect it to be happiness? This is kind of the depth of our ignorance, isn't it, when you really look at it? That we hold all these views that are totally off the wall. Yeah? Like, you join a monastery and you never have afflictions again. Yeah, everybody in the monastery is free of afflictions. We are all so kind to each other and sweet to each other. Nobody's in a bad mood. Everybody agrees on how to cut the carrots. You renounce, you change your clothes, change your hairdo, and you live happily ever after. Yeah, that's another one of our fantasies, isn't it? Yeah. And then that one gets blown out of the water too, doesn't it? It's like, oh, but I ordained and all these people are supposed to be nice to me now. They've been practicing for so long. What's going on in this joint? Yeah. And I'm not supposed to have any afflictions anymore. I've shaved them off with my head, so I don't have any afflictions. So why am I jealous of that one and arrogant over that one, and attached to this one and ticked off at the other one, Why? I'm not supposed to have that in my mind anymore. Yeah, I renounce. Now this robe makes me a holy being. Yeah? Now, no more problems, just holy being. Yeah. So everybody comes up to me and goes like this, and then they bow down, and then they give me red packets, and, Yeah. Then I live happily ever after and collect red packets and lug my red packets around with me my whole life. Yeah. So, since we and others, if we're all going to die, what use is holding on to any of this? Yeah. Holding on to, whatever status we have is useful. Holding on to our anger, holding on to our judgments, holding on to our antipathy or our jealousy or whatever it is. Yeah. Our arrogance, none of it is in tune with reality. Yeah. So so those are the 3 points from the viewpoint of self, the conventional way, that all sentient beings have been kind in the past, present, and will be kind in the future. So we should regard them equally without abandoning any of them. And second, if you also get enmeshed in this thing of they've harmed me, they harm me, to think but they've also benefited me, yeah, in this life and in past and future lives. And then third, that since we're all going to die, there's no use holding on to all these weird kind of emotions towards people. It just doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah. Because we're all going to die and we're going to vanish. Yeah? I mean, there's a continuity of who we are. That goes on. But, all the things, the situations that we're so, glued to in this life, when we die, they're all gone. Who we are in relationship to other people just disappears at the time of death because we change forms. We're born in another place with different sentient beings, different aggregates. Yeah. So we can't make any of this solid. Okay, so there's a little time for questions, comments.
I was really struck by how you said the self-centered attitude is what drives our wish to be appreciated, to be safe, to be loved. Because when those needs are present in my mind, they seem so legitimate and so precious.
Yeah.
And even if I see them in other people, I'm like, oh, I understand. That's reasonable to feel loved.
Yeah.
But if we follow that self-centered attitude, we're not going to get those needs met. The only way to get them met is by caring about others or putting others first.
Exactly.
So it seems I've thought a lot about NVC and how that fits in with Buddhism. And NVC doesn't always trace the roots of some of these needs, and it makes it seem like they're legitimate.
Yeah.
It doesn't question the assumptions underneath these needs. And it's quite radical to say that actually that need is maybe not so skillful, or how you're approaching it, how you're thinking about it. And it's difficult to do that switch, but you're just going to keep banging your head again and again if you don't do that exchange.
Yeah. Good insight. Yeah, really. Because if you talk just on the level of conventionality, yes, those needs are very legitimate. Everybody has them. But when you really trace the root of those needs, you see that it's, the root is rotten. And there's no way to ever have those needs completely met, except by getting rid of the root, in which case then you don't have the needs, so then you don't have to worry about it getting met. But you still have a lot of purpose and energy for life, because now it's not tied up in me and mine and I feel and nobody understands me and I'm alone, to how can I be of benefit? Yeah. Yeah. I went through a similar kind of thing with with NVC. On one level, oh, it was so nice to finally hear somebody talk about those needs that I had, for love and reassurance and that. Oh, somebody's talking about that and saying that's the limit. That felt so nice. But then I started thinking about, well, but that's not what the Buddha said, When the Buddha kept analyzing, where are these things coming from? What's the cause and effect going on here? Yeah? And it all comes back to those two things.
I think the key to resilience is forgiveness is a very provoking thought. And when I think about how that matches, is that all the times in my life where I either disappointed or harmed myself, or somebody else disappointed or I perceived harmed me, if I let them go, that gives me a kind of ability to be able to deal, because it certainly may come up again. But the more that I held power over myself by not forgiving myself or not letting go of somebody's harm, there's a fragility there, there's a vulnerability there, there's an insecurity there that doesn't make me strong on the inside. So I can really see that all the times I've forgiven in my life have given me a chance to be more empowered about having some say about how I respond to the world. Mm-hmm. But the more that I held the victim mentality, the helplessness, the hopelessness mentality, I was always vulnerable to the whims of the world.
Yep.
And that's probably one of the most powerful teachings that the thought trainings have given me, that I have a choice to make in the way I hold the things that happen in my life.
Yeah.
And then I can either keep the victim thought, or I can put the forgiveness in there and bring a resilient empowerment to my own ability to choose.
Yeah. Yeah, you're the one who can decide how to react and how to see situations, and that's where your freedom lies. Yeah, because we can't control other people. Mm-hmm.
Following on from that, because it's kind of come up in a few private conversations this week, is that the recognition that we are not responsible for other people's feelings also gives us this huge space to actually deal with our own and not try to manage what's happening for them. Even they're just rotten to us. Mm-hmm. That's still not our problem. Mm-hmm. If we don't take responsibility for their own attitudes.
Yeah.
It's hugely freeing.
Right. We can have compassion for them, but compassion doesn't mean we become Mr. or Ms. Fix-It, who's responsible for making everybody feel good, because there's no way we can fulfill that. Yeah. And sometimes, we're with people and they're going through a bad spot, and there's nothing we can, we can talk all we want, we can take them out, we can do da-da-da-da-da, but we can't crawl inside their mind and change them. So we can be there, we can offer compassion and just give them space and if we can help them find circumstances that would enable them to heal, we do that. But, yeah. Because it's kind of egotistical, isn't it? To think that I'm responsible for their feelings, so I can do a tap dance and they'll feel better. Yeah. Yeah. If I just found the right thing to do, this tap dance, that ballet dance, this musical, then I'll do that. Then I can solve their problems because I'm so powerful. More powerful than the Buddha. The Buddha, who's so compassionate, can't fix their problems, but I can. Yeah.
Is it kind to say to another, "It's not my problem"?
How do you feel when if you think that it's somebody else's problem and they say to you, "It's not my problem"? How do you react? Not positively, do you? Nobody likes to be told, "It's not my problem, it's your problem." Yeah. it's what you think, but you don't think it in an antagonistic way or say it like, you just pointed out my faults, but that's not my problem. That's your problem. So I'm not going to look and see if I actually have those faults or not, because it just goes without saying that I don't. No. Okay, you pointed out my faults. I've got to listen and check and see if I have that. But I'm not responsible for your anger. Yeah, but I don't say that to somebody. My goodness. Yeah? What is that? I mean, just in these things, just think of how you would feel if somebody said that to you. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, then we'll dedicate.